Alright, so this is a review of the Doosh by I Am Not a Real Boy. Here it is. First things first. This is a full-size live blade knife made out of aluminum and D2 steel. Spacers are also aluminum, but they're done right at the end. There are no latches. The tolerances are, these are about the same as I would consider Jerry Hom. The knife has really great tolerances, very smooth. If you look, you can say even with pressure, that blade is not going to touch. And that's one of the first things I noticed about this that I really enjoyed, is the fact that up here, where the knife sits in between the handles, has this certain gap, and then it expands, allowing for more spacer as well as more space. So this is not going to touch. Okay, any movement here is because of handle flex mostly. So it has great tolerances, which is great. Another thing I really like is this 3D milling on the blade. It's really cool in person. It is, you can feel it. And it also has it on the handles, which is cool. I believe it's going to be bead blasted in the end to add more grip and to just give it a nice finish. So just picture a blast over this 3D milling. The spacers, not much to say about them. They're going to be better finished, I was told. These were done by a friend to save costs on a prototype. By the way, this is a prototype, so another thing, the spacing will be better. This nipple will be rounder and chamfered. But honestly, it hasn't touched me once yet, so I wouldn't even be that worried about it. Let's just get into the flipping. So, one thing I noticed right away about this, it fans a lot like a BRS knife, or I don't know. It's got, the fanning is phenomenal. Okay? It has that fanning feel that a BRS has that not a lot of other knives can recreate. Aerials are great. Twirling is nice because it's still pretty light. Rollovers are just fine. I would consider rollovers on the same playing field as a carbon fiber replicant. One thing it does struggle with a little bit is chaplains, and that's because it's just slightly on the neutral side. If you try to chaplain faster than this and you're not used to a more neutral knife, it will fly off, which has happened to me many, many times already. God, the fanning is great. It's not neutral in the sense that it doesn't have handle bias. It's neutral in the sense that there's not a ton of rear bias or a ton of tip weight for that matter. See, it's fairly uniform. And what that creates is basically less wrap around your finger when you're trying to do momentum-based moves. However, the handle bias allows it to do rollovers just fine, and fans. And the only real issue that you might have with it is just learning to chaplain it. As you can see, it can be done, no problem. It can do zero gravity. It's a fantastic flipper, to be honest. It's probably it's got to be the best flipper for $185 you can get. The tolerances, the cool machining in it, like the details. It's a really unique knife, and I really like that. I like that there were so many details thought of and such a cheap Balisong, you know. And then even the tolerances, right? Like, these are tolerances. If I get an Alpha Beast and it doesn't have these tolerances, I consider that normal, you know. And that's a $370 knife. This is $185, and he is hand fitting the bushings, so they should all be like this. I honestly really enjoy flipping this knife. It's fairly light. It's definitely lighter than a Rep or an Alpha Beast because it is aluminum. I don't know the exact weight. This is a flipper review and not so much like a spec review. All I can really say is, for like the price, you can't beat it, right? A really cool thing about this knife is that it has that kind of old school feel to it with a little bit of modern bias to the handles. So it's like, if you're searching for something like, say, a 42 feel, this is going to be more similar to that than it is, say, an Alpha Beast, where it fans, you know, great. It twirls very easy, like very fast. The chaplains are not as autopilot. It doesn't just wrap around your finger like without any effort at all. You have to know how to control that momentum. But at the same time, you're not going to have any issues with momentum once you get used to this knife. I would say this knife is 10 out of 10 flipper if you just put a little time into it. It doesn't really have shortcomings. Something like having a chaplain be more difficult is just a trade-off. You know, you're trading off for a great, slightly more neutral feeling knife that you can't really get in a live blade being manufactured today. And the level of detail being put into this knife is really awesome. I mean, the milling in the handles, I don't know how well you can see it, is really cool. It's kind of like an EX10 in that sense. The little swirl pattern in each of these holes and up along these is really nice. Even the black screws is a cool touch, in my opinion. One thing I will say, aluminum is very temperature sensitive, and if your hands are kind of hot or sweaty, you're going to feel it more than, you know, definitely more than a replicant or a synthetic scale, but even more than titanium. I found myself, it felt like it was just wet and it kind of felt slippery. Its redeeming quality is that the milling, you keep your grip. It just feels slippery, but it's not actually slipping out from your fingers. It's very hard to explain. Like, if you have like a 42 with a very smooth surface and it gets wet, it's like that shit's slipping out. But this actually, you have some saving grace because it's textured all up and down the handle. Honestly, I didn't expect to like this knife as much as I do. I didn't know what to expect. Garett, or I'm Not a Real Boy, is a new maker. I mean, he's been modding for a while, but he's new to the making. And I've seen people have attempts before that promised very good results and didn't even come close. And this knife, other than the materials, to me, this is comparing with the BRS. Okay, and I'm not just saying that, you know. This isn't like a paid promotion or anything. I just asked him if he wanted me to try the knife and write a real review, a real honest review, and so that's what I'm doing. Not write, like make a video, but as you can see, it fans great. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about this knife, is the fanning, okay? Because there are a lot of knives that I like a lot, but that just don't have the fanning, right? Like, a Thai Basilisk has so much ass and it'll wrap around your finger and you don't have to do anything, and that's great. But in my opinion, the thing fans like ass. You know, you can't choker that thing naturally. This knife can, and it's nice. And it kind of proves that you don't need all, like, you know, huge steel spacers in the back to give momentum. Like, if you try this knife, I'm having no issues. I mean, I've only had this knife for a couple days. I'm still getting used to it. It's a good knife. And I don't even flip that often anymore, to be honest with you.